Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another chapter for the Principles of Management class. So, till now, we've been talking about the first two functions of management, planning and organizing. When we start this chapter, we are firmly in the leadership domain. So, we start talking about leading people. How do you, once you've planned for your organization, you figured out what you want to do, where you want to take this organization, you have filled it with the people who will be responsible for helping me, rather helping you get to that. Now is the time to figure out how to direct their efforts, how to lead them. So, two of the portions that we will be talking about in these efforts will be leading and motivating. And between both of those, it's really important to understand how people are different because what works for one employee may not work for another employee. And so, this particular topic of individual differences is really key because it helps you understand how to be a better manager, not just for one or two of your favorite employees, but for everyone in your organization. It also helps you understand overall how to increase performance. Now, this whole chapter, just like the previous chapter, is really dense with a lot of information. So, what I've done, I changed tactics a little bit for this video. I've brought in a number of really interesting, fun videos that are tagged at the bottom of this video. So in the descriptions, you will see all these links that will take you to the different videos. They're small videos, anywhere from 1 to maybe 5 minutes long, that will help you get a bit more understanding of these concepts because there are so many new concepts that you will be learning and you're learning in this particular chapter. This particular chapter is the bulk of what management major is all about: understanding people, understanding what makes them tick, and what makes management unique from some of the other business fields is how deeply it pulls from psychology. So this particular one chapter, those of you who may have taken, any of your elementary psych courses in your gen ed, you will see a lot of parallels and overlap. So let's go over that, and I will explain a bit more. So this particular chapter is org behavior or organizational behavior, which is my area, the area that I do research in and I have expertise in. So what does org behavior do? It pretty much tries to, it's an interdisciplinary field. That's the first thing to remember. It pulls from social psychology, and a bit from sociology as well. And what it does is it tries to explain workplace behavior. Why is this particular worker so passionate about their work, but the other worker doing the same exact work is not? Or why did this person stop behaving the way they used to? Or I've had clients come up with questions of, why a star performer in my company, someone who's really, really good at their own job, is only concerned with just finishing and doing the bare minimum and going home. And no matter how I try to motivate them, I'm not able to get them to improve their performance. So own behavior is tied to understanding and explaining workplace behavior. But on top of that, it wants to go beyond that. Just explaining behavior is not enough. We want to be able to predict it. If I make this policy decision, how will my employees react? If I use this new incentive program, how will my employees behave? So it's really connected to both explaining behavior, and predicting it on two levels, individual and group level. And one of the chapters we talk about is group as well, but it looks at individual from an informal perspective. The formal perspective of an organization is what the goals are, the policies are, the hierarchy, and how it's structured. But the informal part of the organization, the very, very important part, the lifeblood of the organization, is the informal part, people. And people have different values, attitudes, personalities. We all bring in different personalities to the workplace. Perceptions, the way we see things, is very different. from one person to the other, and different conflicts and culture we bring into the workplace. So again, like I said, there's a lot crammed into this one chapter because this is, remember, a whole field of expertise that we've tried to put together in one chapter. So after going through this chapter, if you like what the things that this chapter talks about, the concepts that are covered in this chapter, do think about looking at management as a major. So let's start talking about all these different things that affect how people behave at the workplace. Remember, who you are is very central to your behavior at the workplace. A lot of people used to have this opinion that uh, employees should leave their family, their life, their personal preferences at the door of their workplace. That doesn't really happen. When we go into the workplace, if you have a sick child at home, it is going to affect your performance. When you go into the workplace, if you have a very strong ethical standard and your company is engaging in unethical or illegal practices, it will affect your behavior. And so it's really important to understand your employees under you and even your own behavior, not just your own behavior. So the first aspect of individual differences is personality. Here's where I want all of you to pause the video and do this quick exercise. If you have not already taken the Big Five questionnaire, it is a personality questionnaire. Please go ahead. The link is right there in front of you. I will also make sure that it is in the description at the bottom of this video. So go ahead and take the Big Five questionnaire. Pause this video, do that, and then once you have your results in front of you, come back and continue with the video. So I'm assuming you've taken the Big Five. You have your profile in front of you, and what does the profile do? It explains your behavior, your personality rather, on 5 big dimensions. So when psychologists first started studying personality, they came up with tons of traits, different parameters of measuring personality. Over the years, they realized that there are these 5 big factors of personality that are stable across cultures, across generations, and that are measurable, very highly reliable, and very highly valid as well. And so the Big Five is one of those really, really respected personality tests that is used by researchers, that's used by a lot of practitioners, because it has very high reliability, which means year after year, when you give the test to a person, the scores won't change. And that's personality, right? A lot of people take the Myers-Briggs Type Inventory or MBTI. It's not really a test of personality, and it's not developed by trained psychologists. So MBTI has been used in a number of ways, but using it for making personnel decisions is not a good way to use it. It is a good tool for group dynamics, helping improve group performance. Not a very good tool for a lot of the other things, though. For those things, you need to look at the Big Five. And so what are the 5 big characteristics of Big Five? OCEAN. What I do is I use this mnemonic to help me remember. Ocean. So ocean is spelled with the same exact 5 letters that we have here. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So take a pause this video, and there's a link at the bottom that takes you to a short little descriptive video of what the Big Five is. Once you watch that, come back to this video and we'll continue. So now that you've watched the other video that tells you what the Big Five personality dimensions are, what they mean, how does it relate to the workplace? Well, some of the big things to understand about this is extroversion. We have seen that extroversion and introversion are very important to helping understand PJ fit, or person job fit. Do you have the right person at the right job? So, for example, we've seen extroversion as being very highly associated with success for salespeople. If you have a sales job, would you really want an introvert in that job? You're doing a disservice both to the company and to that person. Someone who's painfully shy will not enjoy being pushed into situations where they have to talk to people or sell to people. At the same time, if you have an extrovert who you put in a job where it's a solitary job, they don't get to talk to people or interact with people, that is a recipe for disaster for them. And so it's really important to understand person, job, fit. At the same time, we found conscientiousness, on the other hand, is a trait that we haven't found any single job where you don't need to be organized, where you don't need to be dependable, conscientious. And so conscientiousness has been found to have the strongest positive correlation with job performance and training performance. So what if you have a very low score on conscientiousness? Fear not. Here are these two things that I would suggest to you. First thing, learn to be very, very organized and dependable and reliable in your professional life. And make sure that the people who are working with you uh, are the ones, or the people who are going to write letters of recommendations for you, are able to see those characteristics. The more conscientious you are at the workplace, the better it is going to be for you, because your letter writers will see those characteristics. It doesn't matter if in your non-work life you're not conscientious, as long as you're able to learn those characteristics and to learn those behaviors for your job, because that's what matters. So once you've figured out and learned about the personality traits and personality dimensions, really important to understand there is another personality inventory. And those of you who are curious or interested can take this one as well. What's the difference between this? It's called the hexaco. How is the hexaco different from the ocean? Only on one trait, the H. It's a new trait that's been introduced. So a lot of times, people or employers for banking or finance give a test of integrity. Sometimes using the hexaco may delete the need for putting an extra test in, like a test of integrity, because this test is testing you on greed avoidance, sincerity, and honesty. And so the hexaco has one new dimension, which is honesty, humility. So the big five are not the only personality traits, though, that people are measured on. There are a number of other traits that are important in the workplace. And some of them are proactive personality, someone who's able to take initiative and persevere to influence the environment. Then there's another category of personality for self-evaluation. It's a very management-focused personality cluster, so to speak. It's made up of 4 different personality traits: locus of control, self-efficacy, self-esteem, and emotional stability. Emotional stability is very similar to the N from ocean, which measures your nervousness. Now remember, in ocean, N is called neuroticism. I would say change that to nervousness or calm, because neuroticism is a very old word for the same thing. We've come to know over the years that it's not really neuroticism, it's measuring how nervous are you, how easily do you get overwhelmed under stressful situations. And so in core self-evaluation as well, it has emotional stability. But the two things that a lot of times people confuse are self-efficacy and self-esteem. And so, again, pause this video. There is a really interesting video that I've attached at the bottom. It has these 2 authors who've written a book that really helps you understand these concepts. Do a quick 5-minute discussion that helps you understand what's the difference, what's self-efficacy and what's self-esteem. How are these 2 things different from each other? Another really important personality trait is emotional intelligence. It's a type of intelligence. So there is IQ, IQ, which is intelligence quotient, which looks at how smart you are in terms of scholastics. How quickly are you able to understand new patterns, and how quickly are you able to problem solve it when it comes to concepts and study material. Emotional intelligence measures your intelligence on four aspects. How good are you at picking up your own emotions, self awareness? How good are you at picking up on others' emotions, social awareness? How good are you at managing your own emotions, self management? And then, how good are you at managing your relationships without fighting with someone? Are you able to diffuse a situation? If you get upset with someone, do you get angry, or do you calmly sit down and talk with them? So, emotional intelligence is the ability to monitor your and others' feelings, and the ability to use this information to guide your thinking and actions. Right? There's another video that I have at the bottom in the description that helps you understand what emotional intelligence is. The next aspect of how individuals are different is on values, attitudes, and behaviors. Pretty much measuring what do I value and what do I believe in. So, what are values? Well, values are these abstract ideals that guide one thinking and behavior across all situations, right? These present as lifelong patterns. They're fairly well set by the time the individuals are in their teens, and you know, managers would like to know more about an individual's values. Why? Because we all value different things. Someone might value status, someone else might value recognition, someone else might value work-life balance. It's really important to understand what your workers value. My worker who values work-life balance would put family before moving up at the cost of their family. However, my worker who values recognition and status may value those things over anything else. So it's really important to understand how can I motivate my employees based on what they value. Another aspect is attitudes. Attitudes are learned predispositions towards a given object. Your attitudes directly influence your behavior. Now, there are three components of attitudes, and all three components can be present at the same time. What are the three components? Affective, which means how do I feel about this object or about this situation or about this person. Cognitive, which refers to what do I believe, right? And then behavioral intentions. Now remember, a lot of times people think behavioral means to behave. When we're talking about attitudes, it's not about behaving. Attitude is just your behavioral intention. What do I intend to do? You may have an attitude and you may have an intention to beat someone up, but do you really do it? That would be the next step, behavior. So please don't confuse behavior with attitude. Attitude has the intention to behave. Whether or not you do it is the next step. All right. Why are these things important? Well, and why am I making this distinction between attitude and behavior? Well, because when you start talking about cognitive dissonance, which is the psychological discomfort that a person experiences when their attitude and behavior don't really match. So there's a cool video attached at the bottom of this particular lecture video that helps you understand what is cognitive dissonance and what happens when people have cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is very interesting and important to understand when you're looking at employees who are being forced to do something different than their attitude, or employees who have an attitude of ethics, but they are working for a company that's very unethical, or vice versa. And what do? Do they change their attitude? Would they change their behavior? Or what would determine what they change? Once you understand values and attitudes, the next thing to look at are perceptions and attributions, right? Perception is seeing the truth for what it is, or seeing the truth the way it presents to you. Really important to understand perception. And before we understand perception, there are these little exercise that I want to do, right? Pay attention, look at the screen. If you want to, if you don't already have the video on full screen, go ahead and make it full screen, right? Pay careful attention. I want you to look. You will have just a few seconds to look and see look carefully at the image and say out aloud what you see. Okay, you ready? So, what did you see? Let me do it one more time. What did you see? If you said you saw a cup or a chalice or a goblet, you're right. And if you said you saw two faces, you were right as well. Let's do another one. All right, you ready? Okay. So, what did you see this time? If you said you saw someone playing a saxophone, you're right. And if you say you saw a woman's face, you would be right as well. Some of you may have done these food experiments in your psych classes. What do they tell you? Well, it's about perception. Some people say the first thing they see here is the saxophone player. Other people say the first thing they see in this image is the woman. Who's right? Neither. It's all about perception. What is perception? Let's talk about that. All right. Perception is picking up from your senses the stimuli that you see. All right. Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your skin, all of these give you information. So you take information in from your senses, and in this particular instance, it was through your eyes. And the next step in perception, once you've sensed something, is you provide meaning. What is this? And how do you provide meaning? Well, a lot of times based on your senses and your previous experiences. If you've never seen someone play a saxophone, you don't even know what that instrument looks like, chances are you may not perceive that. You may not provide that meaning. And so it all depends on your previous experiences. And again, remember, on your eyes as well, on your senses. And then you store it in memory. And how you store it in memory is different from person to person as well. Is this something that you really found exciting, which means you have heightened emotions, which means you probably are going to store it in a part of your brain that will process heightened emotions. And a lot of times, anything that is accompanied by heightened emotions is remembered easily as well. Once you've stored something in your memory, now you retrieve it. A few days later, you talk about this experiment or this video to someone. That's retrieval. So perception are these steps. Sensing, the first two steps. Sensing and providing meaning. These first two steps are what perception is. And people are different in how they perceive things because their senses are different from each other. No two people have the same retinas. No two people have the same skin receptors. No two people have the same background, which means the way they provide meaning to what they see will be different. And it's really important to understand these things. Why? Because they help understand all the distortions in perceptions that happen. Stereotyping, halo effect, central tendency, and primacy and recency, fundamental attribution error, self-serving bias. All these biases and distortions in perceptions are understandable once you understand what perception is. So take a break, pause this video, and there are a number of really interesting videos that I've attached that help you understand some of these distortions in perceptions. Go ahead, take your time, watch these videos, and once you're done, come back and join me. Now, we've talked about distortions in perceptions, but one of the important phenomena that we've experienced over the years, and or psychologists have done extensive research on, is the Pygmalion Effect. Very important at the workplace. What is the Pygmalion Effect? It's the phenomena where people's expectations of themselves or someone's expectations of others lead them to behave in ways that make those expectations come true. There's another video that explains what the Pygmalion Effect is, what the experiment was. Go ahead and watch it, and then come back and join us. The Pygmalion Effect is very important in understanding something called the self-fulfilling prophecy. We've noticed that managers who expect their employees to be intelligent or expect their employees to be good performers, and to just be good, end up with employees who are like that. And we've seen that managers who think their employees are idiots, or their employees are incompetent, and out with those employees. And why is that? Well, that experiment that you saw helps you understand your expectations of others affects your behavior towards them. And people pick up on your behavior towards them. And so your behavior towards them affects their behavior too. And so managers really need to understand being positive towards your employees, expecting good things from them, and communicating those expectations to them is going to actually give you good results. You are going to find employees who reach out and do better and want to do or provide good performance. So we've been talking about perceptions and attitudes and personality. All of these lead to work-related attitudes. How do people behave at the workplace? What kind of attitudes do people have at the workplace? I have to give a disclaimer. This is a whole one semester long class that's being crammed into one small slide. So bear with me as I go through all these different work-related attitudes, right? What's the first attitude? Well, employee engagement. What does that mean? Employee engagement defined as an individual's involvement, satisfaction, and enthusiasm, right? If you are involved, satisfied, and you are enthusiastic for work, that means you are an engaged employee. People who are proactive, people who are positive, people who are conscientious, we found them to be more engaged at work. We've also found that engaged employees are more enthusiastic, focused, and committed. So there's a cyclical relationship. We've also seen organizational culture can impact individual engagement. So if you are working for a company, or if you're working in a place where you really don't feel like going to work, chances are it may be because of the company culture, or it may be because of the boss or the people that you're working with. And we've seen that those things have a very big impact on how engaged and satisfied people feel at work. Job satisfaction. What does job satisfaction explain? It's the extent to which you feel positive or negative about various aspects of your work. And these various aspects could be work, pay, promotion, your co-workers, your supervisor, and all of these things have an impact on your satisfaction. And what we've seen is job satisfaction and work productivity or work performance are correlated. And so, yes, the old saying, happy worker is a productive worker, is true. We have seen that. Commitment. Organizational commitment is the extent to which an employee identifies with, it's the extent to which an employee desires to remain with the company, right? Commitment looks at whether I want to work for this company or not, whether I want to stay with this company or not. It's not about identity. It's not about that. It's about, do I want to stay with this company? It could be because I love this company, or it could be because I don't have any other choice. It could be because this company has done so much for me, so I want to stay with this company. There are three different reasons that you could be staying with the company: because you're emotionally invested in the company, or because you feel obligated to the company, or because you don't see any other choice. And it would hurt you to leave this company more than to stay with it. Well, attitudes and then behaviors, right? So we talked about attitudes that are different than behaviors. What are the different work-related behaviors? Well, for the first ones is performance and productivity, right? Productivity is actually how, whatever you're doing, how is it helping the company's bottom line? Absenteeism and turnover. What we've seen is absenteeism is a precursor to turnover. And a lot of companies, you'd be surprised how many companies actually face turnover, which means employees leaving on their own. And it's a very big problem. If you see a lot of people walking out the door from your organization or your company, there's a problem. Now, remember, all these things are things that companies battle with, deal with. How do I get my employees to be more engaged? How do I get my employees to be more satisfied and happy at work so that they are more productive at work as well? How do I keep my employees? Right? How do I prevent people from taking too many sick days? If these are the questions that you're interested in, think about management as a major, because that means you want to know more about these employee behaviors and attitudes, other behaviors, OCB or organizational citizenship behavior. These are behaviors that may not be directly a part of the employee's job description, but these are the behaviors where employees exceed their work requirement. People go above and beyond what's asked of them. At the same token, there's something called counterproductive work behavior, which is when people actively go out and do things that hurt their performance, sabotage their work or their company, come to work drunk, steal from their workplace, and all these things will hurt the company. So all these are topics. Again, I know we're cramming so much. Each of these different headings, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 different headings, actually 7 chapters in your own behavior class. What's the next parameter of individual differences? Diversity. Now, a lot of times in diversity, people only think of diversity as black or white, just the color of the scale. Remember, diversity is far, far, far beyond that. There are different layers to diversity. And if you look at this diversity wheel, it helps you understand. People could be different on the basis of their personality, or they could be different on the basis of other internal dimensions, such as age, gender, race, ethnicity, their sexual orientation. Or people could be diverse based on where they grew up, how much money they have, what kind of work experience they have, what do they look like, right? Your weight, whether you have tattoos or not, your appearance, whether you have long hair, short hair, curly hair, all of these things are also dimensions of diversity. And then there are other organization dimensions of diversity. What's your seniority? Where do you work? Do you work in the headquarters, or do you work at one of the remote locations? What's your status in the company? What kind of work do you do? What's your classification of functional level? So please don't think of diversity only in terms of a race. That's just one small tiny aspect of diversity. And biggest problem happens when companies only look at diversity from that one angle. You want your organization to have all kinds of diversity of thought, diversity of experiences, diversity of skill level, diversity of perceptions, and all of these are important. What are the important trends right now in diversity? The big trends that companies are struggling with. Well, one of the first ones is age. Right now, there are companies that have a big generational gap working together at the same time. We have the millennials and the Gen Zs who are working with the silent generation. There are a lot of people in their 70s who haven't really retired yet. They're still in the workforce, and the way they think about their environment, about the work, is very different than someone who just entered the workforce last year or 2 years ago. And so this is an issue a lot of companies are grappling with. How they're grappling with it, again, is through understanding how these ages or generations are different to each other. Another issue or a trend in the workforce is gender. There are more and more women who are entering the workforce than there were 10, 20 years ago, let alone about 50 years ago. And even though there are more women entering the workforce, there are a lot of problems. There's still a gender wage gap. There's still a glass ceiling where we've seen, especially within the business world, with each level increase in management status or hierarchy, we are seeing less and less women being promoted, even though the number of qualified women remains the same. And so that's a big problem. And what we've seen, there's a lot of research that's showing that boards of directors or companies with female CEOs or board of directors that have more female involvement are actually showing better performance. And so this gender diversity is actually helping companies if they have it. But the companies that don't have it are actually lagging behind. Another kind of diversity, race and ethnicity, right? So there are more and more first generation Americans who are working, or there are more and more people who are not just white, You have all kinds of races that are in the workplace. But again, just like gender, there are a lot of issues that we're facing. What we're seeing is there's a lot of stereotyping that's happening that's hurting diverse employees. There are a lot of barriers to upward mobility for some of these ethnicities. And so it's really important for organizations to understand how to treat minorities. Remember, by the next 20 years, American demography is going to change completely, and by the same token, workplace demography is going to change as well. And so it's really important to understand how do we want to treat these people. Do we want to treat them the way we're treated right now, or treat them with respect and equality? The next important issue that current workplace is struggling with is dealing with the LGBTQ community. So about 5-7 years ago, people were only looking at sexual orientation. It's really important to understand sexual orientation is not the only parameter of diversity or gender identity as well. And so LGBTQ, the whole umbrella, is really important to be to understand this umbrella and to understand what are the unique needs and how are these individuals discriminated against at the workplace. Finally, disability, both physical and mental. What we found out that even though ADA came into existence more than 40 years ago, what we've seen is that people, more than 70% of people still have prejudices against disabled employees, much more so than they have against women or against racial minority or ethnic minorities. And this is a barrier to workplace entry for a lot of disabled people who may be able to work really well given the opportunity. So it's really important to understand these trends. And these trends lead to the barriers, barriers of stereotypes and prejudice, or fear of discrimination against majority. These are the barriers to diversity, because we already have stereotypes about certain people who think, oh, Indians are very good at engineering jobs or math. That could be a that is a prejudice, and that could make you behave in certain ways that actually limits your minority employees from moving up or doing their job well. Or we've seen there are people who are scared that the majority group might lose their status in society or be discriminated against, which is unfounded. Or we just feel, we notice that a lot of people have resistance. They just don't like diversity programs. They don't want to make them priority. Or there's a very unsupportive social atmosphere. There is an organization that's been doing things a certain way, and they only want to continue doing things that same way because they feel, well, it's worked for us. Why do we need to change? Or just social structure where the organization is, or the society where the organization is not open to change. There could also be lack of support for the demands that women have, family demands that women have, or minorities might have. And we definitely have seen the biggest barrier to workplace diversity is the lack of support for career building steps. A lot of employers don't understand that the same career building steps and the same support that work for white men doesn't necessarily work for every single employee, especially the minorities, because they bring different experiences. They bring different workplace perceptions. Remember, it's all about perceptions at the end of the day. So it's really important to deal with diversity head on. And the way you do that is understand what diversity is, bring in an expert. These days, diversity programs are not the same old boring thing in the classroom. They're really, really interesting formats of diversity training that really is effective. And so it's really important to understand what are the different programs that are available to you and go through them. And if you are someone who's resistant to diversity, understand this. It's happening. You can be someone who embraces it and helps apply it in a correct way, or you could be someone who keeps resisting it and gets left behind. The choice is yours. The final workplace behavior, again, please remember, stress is a whole chapter in itself, and I really feel that I am sort of running through this whole topic of individual differences because there's so much information that needs to be covered. Stress. What is stress? Well, stress is the tension people feel when they're facing or enduring extraordinary demands, constraints, or opportunities. And they are uncertain about their ability to handle them effectively. What we've seen is most of us have either experienced in the past stress at some point or are experiencing stress right now in our life. And so, what I wanted to do is instead of just talking about stress, I wanted to show you what stress does and show you what we can do as individuals and as potential employers or employees to deal with stress. So, I have a couple of videos at the bottom in the description box that will walk you through what stress is and how does it affect our body, how does it affect our brain, and why is it something that companies should be paying attention to, because we've seen a very high correlation between stress and job performance, a negative correlation. The more employees stress, the uh, lower their job performance is. For those of you who are interested, there is an hour and a half long National Geographic video. It's a documentary on stress. It's called Stress, Portrait of a Killer. It's a really interesting documentary, but please be aware that it is a decent amount of time. It takes about an hour and a half to get through it. But if you have the time, I would really recommend watching it. So I have posted the link for that as well below this video. So please go ahead and watch that video to learn a little bit more about stress. This is it. That's the end of this particular chapter. I know there's so much that's packed into this chapter, but hopefully I've been able to do justice. Please feel free to email me or set up an appointment if you have any questions. Otherwise, until next time, this is Dr. Priya signing out.